Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Mastering Retention podcast. Today we have Khaled. Khalid? Am I saying it
Yeah,
right?
Khaled is fine.
Okay.
Any variant is fine with me.
From Alluvium with us. Alluvium is you guys are working on a new open world RPG that's kind of built on the Ethereum blockchain, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is super fun. And then, man, you've been starting game companies and startups and stuff for a long time, like a true serial entrepreneur like myself. So I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not often that I see people like you. I see a lot of people in the industry where like you've been working at the big companies for a long time, and everyone kind of has this like secret aspiration of starting their own studio and having like the total creative outlets and stuff. But very few totally make that jump. But like you just dove right in and doing it again and again. So this is super awesome to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, before we dive into everything, I always kind of like to ask, like, what's the story of Khaled? How did you, get into gaming? How did you end up where you are today?
So first of all, like it's funny that you said that, I had to start by starting my own company because I'm kind of forced to do that, given that I'm from Kuwait. So we don't have, the luxury of working in a big company or a AAA studio. So if I wanted to work with games, I had to start my own thing. So what happened with me was that my brother, my big brother, is a serial entrepreneur. He started multiple businesses and was very successful. And it was at 2012, 2011 when, Supercell just came out, and it was like a big news that a game was making around 500,000 a day. At that time, it was like crazy. So he rang me up. He said, "Look, Khaled, this looks like very promising. You've been playing games all your life. How about we start something?" I said, "Okay, why not?" At the time, I had my company. Like we were doing some supplements, and I had some problem with the government and things like that. So it was like an escape to me. And we took that very long learning curve. It's extremely steep. It's been like around 10 years, like or 9 years since I started in the game development, but that was the actual start. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. And so was that the Conroyd one that you started first?
Yeah, exactly. So at that point we had like zero experience and we needed to do a game. So obviously like at that time, a runner felt like very comfortable and doable. So we started with that. We hit a lot of walls, learned about development, whatnot. And then like my background is accounting, by the way. So at that time I noticed that, okay, in order to make money, we need to make, like LTV needs to be higher than the cost per install and things like that. I started to
Yeah.
learn these little details. Then it turned me into mid-core games. And then it's like I dove there, for maybe 6 years working on like build and battle games, trying to make it work. We had like I wouldn't say like a major success or like a minor success even, but we had like some good improvements along the year. Like our products kept getting better and better and better and better, and the
That's good.
funding kept getting more and more and more. Yeah, until now, like I'm kind of I wouldn't say like taking a break, but I'm very interested in the play to earn model, and I wanted to dive headfirst. So I decided to join Illuvium, and it looks like a very promising project. They got a good team behind them. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So I don't know if I'm like old school, but I'm still pretty like hesitant about the whole play to earn thing. It's sort of wearing on me a little bit, but like I still
yeah,
don't fully just like get it all. And maybe part of like me not getting it, and let's just like approach it from a finance standpoint of like, okay, if you're giving away all this stuff, like how are
yeah,
you actually like making money and stuff? So I'm more from like an economical standpoint of like I like to very clearly understand what is the business model, how do the dollars exchange hands such that you
yeah.
can afford to pay your salaries and keep making games and stuff. So that's probably been my biggest like I just don't quite get it question around play to earn. So bear with me. I'm a dummy, but I'm open to
No,
learning,
no,
and
sure, sure.
super excited to dive into things today. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Tell me about play to earn. Like what does that actually mean to you?
Okay, so let me first say that I was like a non-believer a couple of months ago. Okay, so I was big and like into free to play, and I'm a free to play guy. Okay, all I used to see was LTV higher than CPI, then it means you can make money. That's all I used to see. This is what made sense to me,
Yeah, that makes sense to me
you
too.
know. And honestly, like blockchain games seem to me as VR games. You know, I'm also like a non-believer with VR for VR games. I think they are very unpractical as they are now, and I don't think they add much value. You know, more than novelty. So I used to see it as something like that, like a gimmick, maybe something that is not really necessary. But after, like, I saw what happened to Axie Infinity, you know, the crazy numbers, the crazy amount of players that are coming in, you know, play to earn seems like it's a good vehicle to drive, you know, user acquisition. It made perfect sense. So initially, like, paid games, you need to pay to play. Okay, then free to play came in, and it was a good vehicle to bring in users. Play to earn is now an even bigger vehicle to bring in users, you know. So here it clicked. Now, how does it work? Like, how the economics work exactly? Okay, here no one figured it out still. uh, People are just, you know, assuming things. Obviously, like the model that is in Axie Infinity, where the money is coming from new users, therefore everyone is assuming that this is not sustainable. I agree with that, but this is not the only way, and I don't think like we should judge the entire play to earn model using this, you know, example basically.
So,
Yeah.
I think Axie is very interesting, and like they have been getting a lot of users in and stuff, but and this could be, but my understanding is like over 70% of their users are these scholars that people have kind of footed the cost for them to get in, and now they're basically playing the game to make money, and it almost seems like they're treating the game more as like a job than necessarily a game. um, and it seems like they're starting to hit some economical like issues where like they've got too much SLP that's out there. They've got too many, animals. And so the SLP price is like decreasing, which makes the amount of money that you make for the time that you spend playing to be less. And it seems like they're starting to like hit some thresholds and stuff. So, it makes sense in terms of like bringing players in, but like, is it actually a long-term financially stable model with this like play to earn? Because a lot of those users that you're bringing in, aren't they just trying to make money? And I feel like if you've got too many of those and you don't have people to actually sell stuff to, like, you got a supply demand issue.
Yeah, definitely. So now what I'm going to say, I might be making stuff up, okay? But it's like now I think we are allowed to, you know, given the state of the market, we could just assume things. So what I think is like depending on new users as a source of money coming in is fine, but it shouldn't be the sole, you know, source of money coming in. So what I think is happening is that if you have a game that has tons of users that are there to make money, then that is would, you know, be a very good environment to get whales in. Honestly, like whales would want to come into a game that has a lot of users, okay, and they want to, you know, just like do their thing basically. They wouldn't want to go to a game that doesn't have a lot of users. So I think these two things balance each other out. Now, okay, how could we get enough money from whales to sustain all of these play to earn players? That's the question. So uh, I think that whales should aspire to collect certain things, maybe NFTs, you know, like they could invest money, given that whatever they are investing on is assets or are assets that they could later sell. So I think that would make them spend, you know, I think magnitudes like higher than what they would spend on a free to play game. Because on free to play game, you might spend, you know, for fun or just, you know, to spend time, but in a play to earn game, no, you're spending to acquire like as an investment basically. So here it's like a whale could be defined in a very different way than what a whale is in free to play games. So I think what Axie failed to do right now is that to how could they monetize the whales to their fullest potential? You know, they don't have enough sinks. I could just buy the most powerful Axies and I could just sit and enjoy my ride, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, that's interesting. Um, so you're kind of doing this open world RPG. So I'm going to think a little bit. We're going to go back to the future,
Yeah.
as we'll get there. Um, and you think about Diablo 2, and like I know I've heard about, you know guys that ran a bunch of bots in college that were making like $80,000 a year off of these basically like automated, Diablo selling items, websites and stuff that they ran.
Yeah.
Now you think about that, and obviously, like, I think most people that played Diablo 2 did not play it with the sole aspiration of making money. They played it because they really enjoyed the game and they wanted to build a certain, character with certain items to be like super powerful and like beat the final bosses and do all the stuff. In order to get those though, like especially when you're talking about like the high runes in Diablo that had like 1 in 10 million drop chance or something like that for like the top ones, and it's just like basically impossible for a single person that's endlessly playing to even have a chance of finding all the stuff that they need. And so, Diablo basically had this like almost forced trading economy where like you'd have to spend a lot of time magic finding, and hopefully you'd get lucky enough that you find something that's of value that you can trade and make a few trades or whatnot to finally get those items or things that you need. And it took a lot of time. And so, for the people that were running the bots, where, okay, it costs me maybe some setup fees and then $20 to buy the, new CD key or something. And then I can run a bunch of bots. And if I find these items that I sell for, $1 or $5 each or something like that, and I find a few of those items per day or even more, like I can recoup and have a pretty solid investment back. And it's basically you trade getting those items faster for the time that it would take. And in some cases, not even possible to do that. But, I don't know that that's necessarily correlates that directly to like a play to earn mantra, or do you think that it does?
I think it should. Like, are you talking about like, should I invest some money to improve my mechanism of acquiring more money, basically?
Well, no, I'm just trying to like find like a real world example so that I can wrap my head around this whole phenomenon. Or is it basically like, hey, if Diablo 2 Resurrected was play to earn on a blockchain, every item is going to be validated, and people that are playing, some of them are probably going to be whales and just want these super powerful characters and not have time. And then other people that are playing are going to have lots of time and they're going to find these items, and then they're basically just going to sell them. And because Blizzard doesn't have like a free to play mantra, they're just going to take, let's say, 5 or 10% of those sales directly. And so all this transaction volume ends up, churning a pretty good amount of dollars for, Blizzard behind the scenes. Is that kind of the whole premise of play to earn?
It does. Like this one, actually, this example does exist in 2 places. So one is the initial start of Diablo 3, where there was a real money auction house. Which was amazing for me. It was amazing. But the problem that introduced a lot of issues because the game, wasn't built for that. So it didn't last long. And this also exists with Path of Exile in the start of a season, basically, where they use like a chaos orb, which is basically like a currency there, and you have like a full-fledged market. And you can see in the beginning of the season, the item prices might be very high, even if you transfer it into dollars. And then as the season goes, the prices drop so steeply. So here it's because the items that are in the economy, they could never go down, they could only go up. So that's a problem. The same thing is happening with Axie Infinity. The number of Axies just keeps going up. So if the number of players goes down, then the number of Axies to players would be a lot higher than before, therefore the price would drop. So I think a game that has such a model will not work unless you put a mechanism in place that would take everything out of the economy, or not everything, but like unused things, basically. I'm assuming like characters would die in a game. Items would get destroyed. That would be a very healthy economy for a play to earn game.
Do you think that it's more of just issues in their economy design, like, maybe axes should only be good for this many battles, or they have too many breeds that are available, or you know or is it all kind of speculation, or should axie really live within this idea of like seasons, and at the start of a season SLP is probably going to jump back up in price because everything else was like wiped out before? Or can you even do that? Because technically SLP and I forget the AXS coin, like live
Yeah,
in this, external wallet. Like, can you even do
yeah.
some sort of seasons with, coins like that?
I think seasons won't work because inherently, like the precious thing about NFTs is that I want the ownership. I want to own it forever. So I don't think making season and just deleting everything off, I don't think it would be a good idea. But I think putting some optional things to do such a thing would be good. Like for example, imagine I could just sacrifice an Axie to get some type of currency that I could be able to use in a consumable way. Let's say re-rolling one of the Axie's properties, something like that. So therefore you give like an infinite amount of what do you call it, like a place for whales to dump their money. I will go buy all the floor price for the Axies, I will sacrifice them all and create this mega ultimate Axie. So imagine how much money I could spend by doing that.
Yeah.
So I'm hitting two birds in one stone. I'm cleaning up all this, Axies that are in the market that are not used, and I'm also funneling in money in the economy. So you would need treatments such as these things to make sure that your economy is evergreen, basically.
Yeah. Do you need to have some sort of like massively, like almost infinite type of a sink? Like, I think I'm just on Diablo 2 right now, but
Yeah.
in Diablo 2 they had this concept of gambling and crafting, which not a lot of people would engage in. But gambling, sometimes you could get these super super rare like circlets or amulets that would have like a ton of resistance and levels and strength and all this stuff that like were beyond even like the most powerful unique items, but they were just like ultra rare, and they were like the most expensive games or items in the game because they were so rare. But you could spend an infinite amount of like gold, which is pretty meaningless and easy to collect, but you could basically just like infinitely spend. Same thing with like the crafting items. Like you could find as many gems as you want and you could basically like sink over and over and over again. And maybe eventually you would find something like that. But is it important to have that level of sink? So like in the case of Axes, like do they need to have these like ultra rare powers that could come from this idea of like sacrificing an Axie to like reroll the stats or something like that?
Yeah. So the way that I see it is that the deeper the sink is, the more a whale could like, or the more the whale could sustain a bigger play to earn audience, basically. So this is the way that I see it. So if assuming you cannot attract like this mega whale or someone who is willing to spend that much money, then it's good to have a sink that could self-adjust itself. Like the way that I'd like to design economies is the more sinks you put in, the more it will self-adjust itself. It's like a kind of way to bulletproof your way out of it. So the more the better. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't want as much sinks, unless they would just break the power curve. So if you can put things that don't break the power curve, that don't require a lot of content, then that's amazing. Put as much as you can.
So thinking about play to earn, and this is probably going to be a generalization that should not cross any sort of thing, but does it make sense? So I have heard someone say, hey, here's the cool thing about play to earn. I can sell the players a sword for $10, and then that player can turn around and sell it again, and that player can sell it. And each time I take $1 from each transaction. So it could get sold 1,000 times, and I end up making $1,010 off of this sword that I would have sold one time. does it make sense to have that sort of in-app purchase, free-to-play mindset where like you sell the thing initially, whether it's a loot box or something other, and then allow the players to then go on and like resell those items where you take a portion of that? Like, is that like the core definition of the economy, or is it better to be more on the, hey, you can play this game, and throughout this, let's say, open world RPG, you can occasionally find these maybe ultra rare items, and then you can turn around and you sell it for whatever value it is. We're going to take a cut of that. That player that gets it could ultimately resell it, and we take the cut of it, but we don't take that initial kind of finder's fee for rolling it. Or am I kind of off base in how I think about it?
No, like initially, like let me give you an example. Like once I looked at Axia, I thought that the majority of the revenue would come in from the marketplace fee, which is like around 4.5 or 4.25% out of any transaction that is happening in their marketplace. Yep. But after I dug into that, it turns out that maybe, I don't know, 90% or 95% of the revenue is coming from breeding fees. So the marketplace is almost like nothing significant at all, So that was very interesting. That was very interesting. So it told like, but obviously you would need a mix of both. Okay, but I would assume that the big chunk of revenue would come in from minting. So creating these NFTs from zero, and if you can have a way like to make these NFTs, as I said before, like disappear or I don't know, sometimes something happens to them, it would be better because you would encourage more minting. So yeah, so I think minting is the bulk of the revenue where it will come from. I think it's from minting. But also, like, look, this is a bit of a weird topic for me, but when you're working on a play-to-earn game, you're not really just trying to maximize revenue, not like free-to-play games. You have another aspect, which is you are trying to maximize your token price, basically. So that's another thing that you need to keep an eye on. So if your in-app purchases or whatever type of monetization also requires players to spend these tokens, then it would also drive the price up. So it's also another thing to keep in mind. You're trying to maximize your token price. So how could you do that, and how could you incorporate it into the game to basically like increase the demand on the token?
Yeah, that's actually a good question of something that I've kind of been wondering about a little bit. It seems like you don't actually make that much money directly from the game, in the sense of like, okay, for a free-to-play game, if I send you a $10 item, I keep $7 of it after Apple takes their cut. I have $7 that I can use to pay salaries and server costs and things like that. In the case of like this marketplace approach, where I'm taking that 10% or 5% or whatever it is cut of that sale that's happening, typically I'm taking it in the form of my cryptocurrency, and I've got this like cryptocurrency. So like, how do you actually balance keeping that liquid enough that you've got funds to be able to like pay salaries and stuff like that? It seems like a lot of them are just raising crazy amounts of money and not taking it off, but like that doesn't feel like a good economic model for me long term. Like I can't understand it.
Yeah. So I think I'm not sure if a company reached that point yet, to be honest. Like I think most of them are just like let's raise funds and so on. But I think it you need to sell in the end of the day. You need to sell tokens enough to self-sustain your studio. But what I'm kind of skeptical about one thing, which is like distributing or acting like distributing part of the revenue on the governance token, which is what is currently like the most popular thing to do, which is trying to push the token toward behaving as a stock, which does give it value. But I think the majority of the value would come in if games started to use their token within their game or their application. I think here where the biggest bulk of the value would come to it. I could be mistaken. I'm not sure. I'm just still researching this topic. But I think if Axi's marketplace started using their Axie token instead of Ethereum, I think that would play a big role in playing like or driving the price of the AXS price. I think, I think it's a play of balancing things. Deciding to with like a revenue share model or a profit share model. I'm not too sure about that. I'm a bit skeptical, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have gotten that far to figuring it out, but I'm very curious. Like, and if you blended the two, like I could make sense. Like if you built, let's say, a free to play open world RPG where your monetization from the get go is primarily based off of, like, let's say, making the gacha pull on the loot boxes, like pretend you emulate Genshin Impact, which I'm not saying like they've got some economic problems and stuff in there, but seems to work pretty well, right? So let's say you emulate that, and you're making the cash off of those initial payments. But once I've made those pulls, I now own these characters and I now own the swords and stuff like that. I can then go and sell those on the marketplace for crypto in this sense. And then, you could keep that. And so it's almost like you've got two dual revenue streams where like you're stocking up on the crypto that you could unload or sell at one point, but then you're also getting that like in-app purchase flow in that you can use to keep the lights on and stuff like that. So I don't know. I just like to understand businesses in a way where it's like this goes to this, goes to this. And, we've got profits and EBITDA and the business can continue to grow. Cool. So do you think that the next evolution is play to earn really about the players and how much money they can make? Because I think a lot of Axie players, like, they come in because the top players are making over, or were at one point able to make over double like the average daily wage in the Philippines. So like, do you think it makes sense to like keep an eye on that, or is it better to focus more on, let's make a really fun game that is going to bring in real players that are want to play the game for the sake of the funness of the game versus, just making money on the side?
Yeah. So I think that, we are reaching the end of the first phase, which is, something basically you can call a game, that could have a lot of funding and could have some players. No, I think we're going to reach a stage where it's like, no, we need to really think about fun. We need to really think about accessibility. Now it's like horrendous. So if you're gonna want to play any of these games, like you need to jump through hoops and do a lot of things, and then you could barely play whatever they call, a game. I think no, fun is very important. Having a play to earn is just an aspect to be used as a user acquisition thing. And I think a game should align, the best way to make money should be the best way to play the game, or should be the most fun way to play the game. I'm a game designer. I know that always you need to design your game that the best way to progress in the game should be the most fun way. So now we should also make it that the best way to make money should be also the most fun way to play the game. So I think fun should be aligned with earning. Definitely, and it would be a competitive advantage, and we're going to see the differences between whatever is existing now and the experience game developers, I think, soon.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So one thing that, I mean, for anyone, and I'm curious if you've ever done this, but have you ever, maybe pushed untested config to production and, tanked your economy for 3 days, or destroyed the game as backend for 3 hours?
So definitely, it happened to us before. Definitely it happened to us because like in all my companies, like we were very small teams, like 4, and we used to take on like massive projects.
Yep.
So it happens, and I don't know, like usually like if it happens and you're open with the user and things like that, at least to the because you cannot sense all the user, but you can only sense what is coming through the channels, communication channels. So whether it's through Discords and emails and help shift and things like that. Usually they are very understanding. I never found it like it's to be a disaster or a problem.
Right.
Users are really understandable.
Well, I mean, my general experience is that these things will happen, but I'm kind of curious from the economy standpoint of an in-app purchase-based game. Like, it can be bad on your economy, but what happens with errors, and how do you monitor and maintain your economy in a play to earn type game where like the stuff that you accidentally give away has significant or potentially significant like real world value for players? Like, is it just something that you've got to like triple check and have extra monitoring for, or is it just kind of an unknown risk that we'll see what happens when somebody makes a big
So probably they will not be as friendly as the free-to-play games. I'm sure of that. But yes, like definitely need to put I don't know, like multiple layers of QA, and it's not something and the updates won't be so quick, so fast as we see in free-to-play games. I think it is much more significant. But at the end of the day, I think it would be a good practice to isolate the game and the blockchain, where it's like, it's like you could play the game, do your thing, collect your stuff, and then if you want to move things to your wallet, then it's like an isolated step that you could disable and roll back the server if there is issues. I don't think it's a good idea to make like playing the game, an item drops and then you can just create it on the blockchain instantly. I don't think that would be good, and I'm not sure if it is possible now. But I think isolating is key. It's important.
So switching gears just a little bit, what do you think? So, games have really transitioned over the last 10 years from, going back to Diablo because I can't get it out of my head apparently, but you shipped Diablo 1 and then you worked on Diablo 2 and then you worked on Diablo 3, and there was like a couple little like updates and patches in there, but like for the most part the game team moved on to the next game, right? We don't really do that anymore, right? We do games as a service. So ideally I release the one game and I'm continually pushing out more content and stuff. And it's great because games as a service, I have a more sustainable business where ideally the cost of producing new content is less than the additional revenue that I get in. And it's harder to find that hit game today than I think it was 10 years ago. And once you have something like that, you want to keep your players around for the long term, right? And so really we get into this idea of LiveOps. And LiveOps is like a top 3 issue at every studio. What do you think LiveOps is going to look like within the world of play to earn or blockchain gaming? Like, is it going to be very similar to what we see in free to play games today, or do you think it's going to be something different because we have this play to earn type mechanic tied to things?
I think it will be roughly similar. I don't see like any major reason to not make it behave the same or make developers change. But I think the expectations of the players in play to earn, I think it would be, like they would expect more. I think, especially with these like metaverses ideas that are getting thrown around here and there. I think it's players are expecting some big things, some massive things, and we have yet to see like a real, I don't know, like a metaverse that is tangible, that we could see it, we could play it, we could see the value. So yeah, I think it should be similar to free-to-play games. I think it should be similar. I don't see a reason why not.
That's great. Okay. So for fellow entrepreneurs or folks that are thinking about, starting something like this,
yeah.
I don't know how many like umpteen pictures I have seen lately as an angel investor. It just seems like everyone is throwing in blockchain and NFTs like just to jump on the hype train. I was talking to one guy about a potential game that he had that he is an amazing artist, and he made this like pond thing that was so beautifully tranquil, and like the music, and it was just so peaceful. And I was like, you should just turn this into a game, because I feel like there are people that are just going to want to buy this thing on Steam and just walk around this mystical world that you have created and just like relax and get away from things. Um, and then he kind of got some advice from somebody else where it's like, oh, well, I had blockchain and NFT in my pitch, and they just like threw money at me. And so now I look at his pitch, and it's like this tranquil world. And then it's like, oh, and we're going to add multiplayer. Oh, and we're going to add these collectible NFTs built on the blockchain and stuff. And I was just like, why are you adding this stuff in here? Like, I feel like it needs to have a reason. And I don't know, would you agree with that? Like, do you feel like you need to solve a problem by adding the blockchain in, or am I just missing something? Because usually when I look at Candy Crush, so I'm not going to clone Candy Crush, but I'm going to look at what problems do the players that by all accounts should be playing Candy Crush but aren't, what problems are they having with it? And Homescapes figured that out, right? It was, well, playing Candy Crush was meaningless to me. Playing level after level of just like ascending endlessness, there's no purpose, there's no why. So we give them a why, which is you play these levels, as many as Candy Crush, but after each one, you collect these stars that allow you to rebuild this mansion. It's like more of a why. It's like you solved a real problem and you moved forward. So I feel like play to earn or blockchain or whatever, if you're going to throw it in, it needs to solve a real problem, at least for me. I don't know. What's your take on that?
So I think it does solve a problem of getting funding, basically. So it's much easier for sure. Like there is a big amount of money that is unrational now going in, and with I don't know, projects that look like the disaster, and they still get funding. I'm not sure what's going on, honestly, but it seems like it's like irrational. And that could be a symptom of the bull run, going in, all the prices coming in. There's a lot of money there. It could be something like that. But I agree with you. Like you shouldn't just put blockchain into anything and let's try to make it work. I think that's a recipe for disaster. Although I think because there is an opportunity now to raise funds, if you have a blockchain thing, so it might make sense to try to create thing that utilizes the blockchain, that utilizes NFTs very well. This is the best way to go. It's not like, okay, this is what I like to play, let me try to cramp it in with blockchain and NFT, and let's see how it goes. I don't think that's the way to go. And honestly, like an advice is that the more limited the scope is, the better, because you're trying to deal with a beast of a task that is NFTs, and blockchain and technology. And the marketing there is, by the way, it's completely different than what we're used to in free-to-play games. The marketing is completely different. It's pure like raw guerrilla stuff on the internet going on, and paying influencers, paying Twitter account, things like that. So it's, and I'm sure there is a lot of market manipulation, sweeping floors. So the easier the project is, the more limited it is in scope, I think the better. Something that is fundamentally has strong gameplay loop, very understandable, very easy to comprehend with the economy, limited number of resources, limited mechanics and things like that. I think these are the projects that will be winners, going forward.
Do you think that play to earn could be any genre? Like, if I wanted to clone Royal Match and make it play to earn, could I do that? What would that look like?
It would look like one of those games that is, try to make money on the mobile, which is, you end up making like 20 cents by playing all day, things like that, that doesn't really, hit the mark, basically. I think everything, saying everything could work. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. There is a lot of room of things we can do, but we need things that, like uses. I don't know. Like I think the more games, the more a game depends on the economy, the easier it would be for it to, fit into that blockchain NFT type of environment. I think so. Simple games like Match 3 and things like that, it's hard. MMO fits perfectly, almost like perfectly, easily. Game like Diablo, you said it, like it fits so easily.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking like collectible card games fits very easily. Like basically we've been doing this with Magic for years now, right? You buy the physical cards. You don't typically buy them just to like acquire value with the hope of selling them, but some cards are super rare and you get them. Rather, you buy the cards and you play the game because you love playing with your friends and building those relationships and stuff. But you also do acquire some value within the cards that you do, occasionally find and stuff there too. That makes sense. Yeah, so kind of final question here before our unofficial question, I guess, and that is, for folks that are really thinking about starting their own studio, like what advice would you have for them, having done it several times over the last 8-10 years?
So yeah, like I think it's like finding the founding partners, I think, is the most important thing. I had like an issue with that before, and I learned that having a very strong partner that would complement your skill set is an excellent thing to have. It would save the company so much in the future or going forward. And having a very solid and clear idea to start things with. Like it's not good to just jump on the bandwagon, and starting something not knowing exactly the edges of the thing that you're trying to design for. I think having a very strong idea, having a very solid plan to start off with is definitely a plus. Definitely a plus.
That's great. I love it. Cool. Well, final question, because it is the Mastering Retention podcast, of course. And that is, what's one tip or trick you found over the years to increase player retention? Like, how do you keep your players playing for longer?
Okay, so like, let me think about that one a bit, because I want something that is really meaningful. So a trick to keep players retained. So I think over the years, like the features that had the most impact was mostly social features. So anything that has social feature, as simple as chat or guilds or clans and alliances, usually that will always have the biggest impact on retention for us, or at least the games that we try to work on. Yeah, I think that would be like the best thing to do. Just adding chat. It's the easiest way to do it. Yeah, definitely.
I would agree with that. I think, I played Clash of Clans for something like 5 years and Clash Royale for probably like the same thing. And what kept me around was being in my clan and my guild. And it's like, why? Dang, I got to log in today and at least do my clan battle. Otherwise, they're going to, I'm letting them down. I don't want to do that. You got these like relationships with these, other players that we formed by playing together for years. So I love that. Social features. Let your players
I know,
connect.
I know it's very broad.
I think, well, yeah, it's probably true. Anything maybe up to like day 30, it's probably not going to be social, but like anything after like day 30, or especially after day 90, is going to be like social related, because like if you're not connected to the people in the game, eventually you're just going to quit and not come back.
Yeah, definitely.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us. If folks do have, any questions for you, or want to learn more about, Illuvium, is there a good way for them to reach out to you?
Sure. So I'm mostly on LinkedIn and Twitter as of recently. I think I'm a bit of a boomer, when it comes to socials. So I'm on Twitter, K Alroumi _ and on LinkedIn, Khaled Alroumi. So feel free to contact me on, or if you have any questions or any, I don't know.
Love it. Sounds
Always
good.
open.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.